Today, we will be discussing order in the chaos, hospital disaster preparedness, and the nurse as the human anchor in crisis management systems. The Joint Commission mandates emergency preparedness plans and biannual drills, coordinated by facility safety committees and administrative liaisons. This framework follows a trajectory: the blueprint of preparedness and planning, the code of response and triage, and the human anchor of ethics and psychology. The underlying philosophy is a dual foundation: a rigid logistical system of readiness, coordination, and self-sufficiency, activated by adaptable human leadership. Hazard vulnerability analysis systematically identifies potential natural and man-made disasters. It weighs high-risk proximity targets: chemical plants, nuclear facilities, military bases, schools, stadiums, pulling data from law enforcement, fire departments, EMS, and transportation route analysis, and evaluating the community's precise local characteristics and demographic risk factors. Facility self-sufficiency is measured on a resource burn rate gauge running from 96 hours to 7 days. Stockpile basics: food, water, fuel, staffing. Follow Red Cross guidelines. Pharmaceutical continuity means identifying and stockpiling the top 10 critical daily medications plus disaster-specific drugs with a resupply process already established. And life-sustaining equipment requires prioritization models for severe shortages, specifically how you allocate ventilators. COVID-19 stress tested the supply chain engine. The catalyst was massive equipment shortages: ventilators, PPE, sanitizers, under social distancing mandates. The response pulled 4 levers: preservation, extending the life of existing equipment; acceleration, speeding up production through emergency use authorization and the Defense Production Act; allocation, distributing based on ethical criteria; and expansion, sourcing from non-traditional manufacturers. The Emergency Operations Plan is the blueprint hub, built from 9 interlocking parts: activation response, communication with local command and EMS, coordinated patient movement into and out of the facility, EHR backup and data tracking, security and crowd management, external resource contacts, traffic flow management, demobilization back to normal operations, and the after-action report. The code activates through external triggers like EMS or field command or internal on-site events, following a clear communication chain that incorporates updated CDC infection prevention guidance. Patient identification tags carry triage priority through color-coded urgency, vital demographic data, and records of field interventions. And those tags drive continuous command center logs for bed assignments and family communication. Disaster triage is a paradigm shift from routine care. Routine triage aims to save every life possible, prioritizing the most critical cases with unlimited resource allocation, grounded in autonomy and individual beneficence. Disaster triage aims for the greatest good for the greatest number, prioritizing the most survivable cases requiring the least resources, with strictly rationed allocation grounded in public health ethics and justice, community survival over individual preference. The SALT methodology structures that triage funnel: sort, a global pass assessing who can walk, wave, or remain still; assess, an individual evaluation of breathing, bleeding, and mental status; life-saving interventions, rapid vital fixes like tourniquets or airway positioning; and treatment or transport, assigning the final color code and routing to the designated care zone. The 4 diagnostic categories are red, yellow, green, and black. Red, immediate, is life-threatening but treatable. Pneumothorax, major burns, massive hemorrhage, requiring immediate intervention. Yellow, delayed, is serious but stable. Abdominal trauma, stable orthopedic injuries, where care can wait without loss of life or limb. Green, minimal, is the walking wounded, transported to a secondary area and monitored. Black, expectant, is unsurvivable given current resources. You provide palliative comfort care, never abandonment, but you don't exhaust critical resources there. Crisis communication runs on 3 fronts. Security measures harden the physical perimeter to prevent unauthorized access and manage crowd surges. Media management puts a designated spokesperson in control of information flow through scheduled briefings, preventing misinformation. And the communication plan includes separate staging areas staffed with counselors and clergy, structured updates through the public information officer, and technology like FaceTime to connect families. Nurses are the human anchor, carrying real scope and ethical tension. As the largest component of the healthcare workforce, nurses' scope often expands during crises to include intubation, chest tube insertion, advanced wound care, and triage leadership, balanced against state regulations and patient safety, with delegation becoming critical during severe shortages. COVID-19 was the crucible. Moral distress from limited PPE and isolation policies barring family presence at end of life. ANA guidance affirms nurses retain the right to decline response in environments that are fundamentally unsafe or unsupported. The psychological toll includes anxiety, depression, PTSD, substance use, and severe compassion fatigue, with severity shaped by exposure level, personal loss, available support, and how the event is perceived. At-risk populations include children, the elderly, first responders, and frontline staff themselves. Nursing interventions include active listening and grounding techniques, encouraging a return to normal routines, actively discouraging repeated media exposure to the trauma, and facilitating early referral to specialized counseling. Critical incident stress management runs in 3 phases. Pre-incident is education, proactive training on stress responses and recognizing compassion fatigue before crisis hits. Field support is maintenance, active monitoring during the disaster itself, ensuring rest, hydration, and mandatory rotation out of high-stress zones. Post-incident is recovery, immediate diffusing, formal debriefing sessions, and long-term follow-up psychiatric care to prevent severe PTSD. The nurse anchors 3 things at once: system logistics, executing the 9-part EOP and SALT triage, ethical justice, allocating resources for the greatest good, and human compassion, mitigating psychological trauma and moral distress. True preparedness isn't merely logistical, it's profoundly emotional and human. When the system fractures under the weight of chaos, it's the calm leadership and communication of the nurse that restores order and hope. To bring the full picture together, hospitals build readiness on a hazard vulnerability analysis of local industrial, transportation, and natural threats, targeting 96 hours of independent operation, ideally 7 days. The EOP playbook activates coordinated communication, security, and patient tracking the moment a disaster hits. In response, disaster triage shifts the whole philosophy from most critical first to most survivable first, sorted through red, yellow, green, and black categories, while nurses expand their scope into intubation, chest tube insertion, and triage leadership. And running underneath all of it, critical incident stress management protects the staff carrying the system through the crisis. That's the full arc, from the hazard assessment on paper to the nurse at the bedside holding it all together.